This conference is being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
We'll call the meeting to order for the Underground Safety Board. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll call?
Charland?
Here.
Johns?
Here.
Johnson?
Present.
Munoz?
Present.
Voss?
Here.
Thank you. We would like to begin by acknowledging that we gather today on the ancestral homelands of the Nisenan people. Sacramento was a gathering place for many local tribes who have lived throughout the Central Valley and the foothills for generations and were the original stewards of this land. We would like to acknowledge the Southern Maudu people to the north, the Valley and Plains Miwok and Miwok people to the south of the American River, and the Patwin and Wintun peoples to the west of the Sacramento River. Please join me in expressing our deepest respect and gratitude for our Indigenous neighbors and for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. Well, welcome everyone. Before we begin, let's go ahead and review the excavation route provided on the PowerPoint presentation. All right, so in the event of an evacuation, proceed out the doors in the back of the room, take a left in the atrium, walk past the restrooms, and use the P Street doors to exit the building. Our assembly point is across the street in Roosevelt Park. All right, so for those of you in the audience, many of you are normal faces, and I see new ones, so I'm very excited to see new people here. Thank you for coming. Let's review the audience participation and public comment procedure. So if you'd like to make a public comment, which we would love you to do, go ahead and walk up to the center podium, and you can push the little button, and it should make your mic live. And if you would like to participate in the webinar, you will go ahead and click the raise hand button so that you can be put into the queue. And then when it's your turn to speak, you'll be told to speak, and you can push the #2. Oh, and then unmute yourself. Okay. So that being said, I'm going to give you a few minutes. There was a lot of stuff to look over today. Are there any attendees in person who would like to have any public comments? So we'll proceed to the public comments on topics that are within our jurisdiction, but we're not on the agenda today. So are there any in-person public comments? Go ahead, Mr. Cleaver.
Good afternoon. Steve Cleaver with PG&E. I had addressed the board down in Riverside related to an issue with a contract locator or utility operator not marking.
Is your microphone on?
I believe so. Not marking when when the work was identified as trenching or boring and they were requiring a specific bore path. Just want to continue to escalate this issue to the board as a matter of importance and continuing to create some issues that are out in the field. I'm grateful for partnership. We've recently had a discussion at CARGA, the California Regional Common Ground Alliance, SSIP committee about this, and we're taking this on as a committee group to identify opportunities to improve this situation, but I do believe that it's an area that would benefit from the board's involvement and structuring some sort of improved interaction between excavators and operators or contract utility companies when there's a dispute over the delineations that are placed at the site that are in compliance with CGA best practices, but not necessarily the preferred method by the operator. Pardon me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other in-person, in the room public comments? Going once. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to webinar comments. Are there any callers on the line that would like to make a public comment?
I am seeing no raised hands.
Oh, I see Henry Miranda.
I see one raised hand.
You may proceed,
Hi,
Mr. Miranda.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good afternoon, members. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak. I would just like to echo the comment that was made by the previous speaker. Oftentimes, we find ourselves in a situation where we, the excavator, delineate the job site according to the 4216 requirements. However, several locators and more are joining this type of group that because we're not marking in the preferred method that they choose, they are refusing to mark the lines, causing delays and liquidated damages to the job. I would also like to request that this board somehow involves themselves or gives a recommendation of sorts. I don't know to what extent, but it would be very helpful for us, the excavator. I know I speak for my organization and probably many others that are out there, as also members of that SSIP committee that have had this trouble or this challenge for months, if not years, that this has been ongoing. That was all.
All right, thank you. Are there any other public comments?
I am not seeing any at the moment.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item number 3, which is approving the previous meeting minutes. And these meeting minutes are for the April 8th meeting. So we will, per the usual, go to any comments to any of the public in the room. Does the public have any comments regarding the April 8th meeting notes as presented? Your copy for your review is in the back with all those wonderful stacks of paper. Are there any comments? Okay, let's move to the webinar. Any public comments on the webinar?
There are no public comments.
All right. Seeing there are no public in person or on the webinar comments, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion from the board members to approve the minutes, or we could have discussion regarding the minutes if there are any corrections to the minutes.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the minutes been presented.
Thank you, Member Johnson. Do I have a second?
Member Voss, second.
Voss. I have a motion from Member Johnson and a second by Member Voss to approve the meeting minutes from April 8th as distributed. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll call?
Charlene?
Yes.
Charlene, yes. John?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
With a unanimous vote, the minutes for the April 8th meeting are approved. All right. Next, we're going to move on to the public comments. The public comments are for all of our enforcement items. Please note that the item number 5, decision on NOPV for ARM or ARM construction has been pulled and will not be heard today. But at this time, we're going to allow the public, both in person and in the webinar, to go ahead and make any public comments on any of those cases. So that would be 6 through 9. So if you have any comments that you'd like to make, please do so now. I'll give you a few minutes to go through and organize and see if there's comments that you'd like to make on any of those. And thank you. We have a comment. So if you have any other comments, go ahead and line up if anybody else would like to speak. And please identify which item that you'll be discussing, and then try to keep the comments down to about 3 minutes. I know there's not very many, but just in case everybody lines up at the last minute, I want to make sure everybody has a chance to speak.
Yeah, Madam Chair, thank you very much. Once again, Steve Cleaver, Pacific Gas and Electric Company. It was actually primarily in reference to investigation number 5, which also carries into number 6, because they're similar investigations, but it's regarding the work that was being done and the lack of a USA ticket out at the site. And that this was likely a job that required a permit for excavation, and looking for the board's review of Government Code Section 4216.9, which specifically states that no permit shall be valid when a one-call ticket has not been obtained when a local or state authority has issued a permit for excavation. I understand that section may be interpreted a couple of different ways, and looking for insight from the board on whether or not this is a case where a permit for excavation was required, and if so, I do believe that there's an opportunity to bring a greater stakeholder community into the discussion, being the local authorities who issue permits for this work. My primary perspective on this is if a utility, or pardon me, if a local municipality has issued a permit and during the course of the investigation it's discovered that a damage happened and there was no permit, there was no USA ticket, that means the permit was invalid. The excavator, or the investigator in this case, it does not appear as though that was a question that was asked, which is totally understandable, but looking to see if there might be an opportunity to get that stakeholder group of the permit issuing agencies involved during their review of permits or signing off of permitted work to confirm that a USA ticket does exist out on site. Because if they are signing off on that and the permit is not valid pursuant to 4216.9, then there may be some exposure for the cities, and I think grabbing them as a stakeholder in the discussion to include reviews of USA tickets during their permit inspections, especially when it's excavation related, would be beneficial to the community. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. James Wingate, USA North 811. I also wanted to comment on item 5 with the exact investigation that Mr. Cleaver just mentioned, and also in relation to that same portion of the law, 4216.9. I probably could have said this in the area not for comments not on the agenda, but since this was kind of on the agenda, I thought I'd save it for here. But just along those same lines about issues with permit issuing entities, cities, counties, municipalities, those are the primary ones. But we have a lot of confusion at the call center, or not confusion, but frustration with excavators and utility operators in terms of that portion that says that the permit is not valid unless a USA ticket is created. Well, sometimes we find that some permit issuing entities are telling the excavator, get your USA ticket first, then we'll give you the permit. Now that process is very fast, as we all know, right? 2 business days, not counting date of notification, to get your USA ticket to have it be live. But we hear oftentimes that permits take weeks and sometimes even months to get a permit. And so that means the excavator has to renew the ticket or request a remark or whatever they do, but they're probably not maintaining those marks if they don't even have their permit yet, so they're not going out to the site. The point is, this is adding additional work in the field unnecessarily, so perhaps there could be, following up on what Mr. Cleaver said, coordination that way about the order or clarification of which should happen first, either the permit or the ticket. My recommendation would be to do the permit first, since that seems to be what takes longer, but that's just one stakeholder opinion. But the point is, it is creating additional work in the field that's frustrating to both excavators and utility operators. Thank you.
Are there additional in-person public comments? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to the webinar comments.
I do not see any webinar comments at this time.
Okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to item number 6, which is a decision on NOPV to the City of Rialto Water Department investigation. Yes. Oh, I mentioned item 5, but let's go to item number 5, and as we stated in the public comments, item number 5 has been pulled. And item number 5 was the decision on NOPV to ARM Construction Investigation 23 NTS 00002. So we'll go ahead and proceed to item number 6. So item number 6 is decision on NOPV to the City of Rialto. The City of Rialto Water Investigation is 23 NTS 00002. We'll go ahead and go over the list of recusals. Does anyone need to recuse themselves? The violation before us is Government Code 42163C1A, which is failure to provide electronic positive response. The proposed sanctions are mandatory completion of the board's education course, the jurisdiction of the City of Rialto City Council, and the response. The City of Rialto did not provide a response. So let's go ahead and go through a summary of what occurred. Okay. So on July 10th, 2023, ARM Construction excavated without first contacting the Regional Notification Center with a shovel, damaged a half-inch natural gas plastic service line operated by the Southern California Gas Company. After damaging the line, ARM Construction contacted the Regional Notification Center and the Southern California Gas Company, but did not call 911. After reporting the damage to the Regional Notification Center, ARM Construction began excavating again before the legal excavation start date and time. The City of Rialto member code RIA01SWR did not provide an electronic positive response to ticket A231910488000A, which the call center created after the line was damaged. So we'll go ahead and start with discussion. Who would like to go ahead and start with the discussion?
Member Voss here. Upon review of the material provided here in regards to this case and looking at Exhibit 7, it appears, without them claiming something different, the City of Rialto, that they did not provide the required electronic response.
Member Charlin, so when I look at this, and maybe you can help us, Amparo, the City of Rialto Water had 2 codes, and it looks like the Water Department did respond, and it's another code which could be their Sewer Department. Is that what we're looking at? The Sewer Department of the City of Rialto failed to respond.
Yeah, so according to the investigation, as I just read it, in that summary statement, the member code was the one RIA01SWR, City of Rialto Water Department. So it looks like they have 2 member codes. So they're listed the same. They have different acronyms. One is RIA01.
But we don't know what SWR is.
There's no definition in here at this time. So all we have is what is presented to us as data.
Madam Chair, my question came around the issue of where it says that they responded late, 5:01:29. Is that the time that they eventually did respond? Or was that the time that it's automatic if it don't respond at 5 o'clock?
That's what I believe.
Yeah.
As soon as it hit 5 o'clock, 1 minute after you're late.
So then the time that we have noted here is at 5:01. That's the time they did the note, input it into the system to the one call center.
And the 999.
And then the 999. So do we have what they responded back? to at 501? What was the code?
So based on the investigation, we don't have that, but just from what we have been hearing from all the other investigations, at 501, it just hits 999. So that's the responses, no response, late response. That's what this is capturing.
Okay, well, I'm still confused then. So the 501-29 represents what? The time they notified? Or the time that the one-call system went to look for it?
The one-call system went to look for it.
I noted it expired.
Yeah.
So we don't know whether or not they responded at all.
All we have is this.
They didn't, yeah.
So just to go over again, the NOPV is 4216.3C1A, which is failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. So based on the evidence, the exhibits, at 501, 999 appeared and stated that the member did not respond by the required time.
So, Member Charlotte, so I think there is an issue of who the water, I believe probably by that code that's sewer. You can read into the law that sewer doesn't have to mark. However, if you're going to get a code for it, you should be marking it. So I believe that training, taking our course would help, and they could actually look at this situation and decide, do they want to have two codes, and do they have two, or use one locator? So, but it was late, that code. The ticket was issued, there was a code, and it wasn't responded to on time.
So to summarize the discussion so far, the discussion so far is there's evidence in here in this investigation to support 4216.3C1A. There was a failure to provide electronic positive response before the legal start date and time. And that there would be a benefit to the City of Rialto Utilities Commission to complete the training, the education course. Is there any further discussion?
No.
Okay, so if there's no further discussion, I'd be looking for a motion to consider.
I, Member Voss, move that we find the City of Rialto Water Department violated Government Code Section 4216.3C 1A, failure to provide an electronic positive response.
I have a motion by Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, second.
Okay. We currently have a motion that the City of Rialto, there was enough evidence to support that there was a violation of Government Code 4216.3C1A. Madam Secretary, can you please call roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Excuse me, we're saying that we see a violation here, so.
Yes.
So Johns, yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Okay, motion carried. So now that we agreed that there was enough evidence in this investigation to support a violation, let's move on to sanctions. So far in the discussion, we heard that there was a suggestion that the City of Rialto Utilities Commission would benefit from the mandatory completion of the board's education course. Would we like to make a motion or discuss further?
Member Voss, I move that we recommend to the City of Rialto Utilities Commission that it find the City of Rialto Water Department in violation of Government Code Section 4216.3C1A, failure to provide an electronic positive response, and that the City of Rialto Water Department be ordered to take and complete the Underground Safety Board's education course.
I have a motion on the floor. Does anyone have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a second from Member Johnson. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll call?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Okay, motion carries. We'll go ahead and move on to the next NOPV. The next item before us is an action item on the decision on the NOPV to Rancho West Landscaping, which is investigation 23 NTS 0020. All right. So we'll go ahead and check for recusals. Does anyone need to recuse themselves from this investigation or from this NOPV? Seeing none, let's move on. The violations before us are Government Code 4216.2B, excavating without a valid ticket. The second violation before us is Government Code 42164C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to gas facility. And the third violation is Government Code 42164C3, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of damage to natural gas facilities. The proposed sanctions would be the mandatory completion of the board's education course, a financial penalty to be determined by the board. So the jurisdiction is the Contractor State Licensing Board, and the response. So Rancho West Landscaping did not provide a response. So let me go ahead and read the executive summary for this NOPV. On November 9th, 2023, at approximately 1:30 p.m., a licensed contractor, Rancho West Landscape, Inc., struck a Southern California Gas Company 2-inch yellow plastic natural gas line with a backhoe, resulting in damage to the gas lines and release of natural gas. After damaging the gas line, Rancho West Landscape did not contact 911 or report the incident to the Regional Notification Center. However, the company did notify Southern California Gas Company. All right. So, board members, who would like to begin this discussion?
Okay, Member Johns, yeah, this particular case did have a mechanical excavator excavating at the site without a ticket. It does seem like there's confusion still in the world that a company the size of this group thinking that maybe their general contractor got the ticket and didn't understand the rules, but certainly a 2-inch line is a significant gas line. The operator operating that equipment, I mean, that's the purpose of most of our safety laws and our purposes out here. So I do see that this is a significant violation of what we're doing, and the mistakes are significant.
Member Voss here. I don't know that this one was the one regarding the following on the backs of the primary contractor. I think this is a different one.
This is the one where they had a ticket and then they didn't renew the ticket?
Correct, that it expired.
Yeah,
It expired, and the line got covered up by dirt. Because if you go back here, they presented as evidence of a procedure that they had in place that had a few gaps in it, but it was a good start.
Okay. I'll just go ahead and read this just for everyone in the public. On October 6, 2023, Rancho West contacted Diggler, which created a ticket number, and then there's a very long ticket number, that expired at the end of the day on November 3rd, 6 days before Rancho West damaged the gas line. After the incident, there was a vodka, which is one of the individuals involved in the incident, prepared a report. So in fact, there had been a ticket, but it had expired. That's good discussion.
Yeah. So Member Johns, I had it confused with the one where he deferred to as general contractor. This one is allowing the ticket to lapse. That's another issue that is significant in the construction world because there's subcontractors coming in and out, keeping track of their tickets and their dates. Needs to be done, but it is understandable sometimes that it slips up. So, I kind of changed my stance on that just due to the cause of it. Not to say that it's certainly obviously as serious as the other, but the intent and the negligence isn't, I don't believe, is severe. It does bring up a problem about ongoing construction. You have general construction going on, you have other contractors working, and you have all kinds of marks being moved and things like that. So it is important that contractors do update their tickets, keep track of them on their own sites, and know who else is working in the area.
I think there's a member of Voss here. I mean, there's clearly a situation. They're not saying they're not responsible for it, but it's a classic. The one hand, just things fall through the cracks, and this is a classic, I think.
I mean, clearly, the ticket was expired. I believe it was expired over 6 days. Did maintain the marks. They're required to do it. The thing that stands out to me, this is a contractor state licensing board member, so it should well know about the law. I'm sure they call in lots of tickets, so lapse of judgment, damage happens. This is a clear violation.
I totally agree. I remember Charlie mentioned they've been a member of the CSLB since 1997 and should be very versed on the process and procedures, particularly doing it, irrigation lines or whatever type of work they were doing out there, and protecting and the marks are very critical, particularly if you go past the actual work date.
Yeah. I really appreciated this investigation and the level of participation from Rancho West. There were some things that were different on this investigation and the response that we hadn't really seen in a while. There was an attachment of what those instructions were. There's no real way to know when these instructions on how to dig or the excavation procedures were created, but it's really nice that these there are instructions, now, at least going forward, on how the excavator should proceed. That was actually something very, very interesting in this investigation, as opposed to many of the other ones that we've seen, where it is clear that they did know, and things fell through the cracks, and it could have been a lot more severe. And by luck, it wasn't, because that's a pretty heavy piece of machinery out there doing this work. So I think, when we talk about safety and we talk about that little iceberg, this was an incident that could have gone a lot of different ways, but luckily it did not. And hopefully with them presenting these procedures that they have, they'll dust them off, give them to all their employees, have all their employees sign off that they completed the training, to make sure that everyone is all their ducks in a row for anybody out in the field. So I thought this was a really good investigation. So my kudos to the investigatory team. This was a good one. So that being said, let me just summarize what I've heard. Let's kind of go through them. So excavating without a valid ticket is kind of what we discussed so far. So it sounds like the evidence supports that there was a violation of 4216-2B. Now let's move on to the next one, which is failure to call 911 emergency services after damaging the gas line, so 42164C2. Are we all in agreement with that one?
Yes, other than it being in common sense to call 911 with active gas, blowing, again, state licensing board member, I'm sure that's covered in the training, and it's reasonable to assume that a reasonable person should do that.
My only concern with that one is that, it's a relatively new provision in the law about calling 911, but they did call the gas company to let them know right away. So I think we got to do a better job of educating folks more on that particular issue, because you can see throughout the cases we have, there are a lot of folks that fail to call 911.
Yeah, Member Johns, that was my comment too. We do see that first response seems to be contact the operator, and it seems to be a systematic problem. So we need education, and we need to perhaps via the call centers to have a note added to the tickets or something that, if you encounter an emergency situation, call 911 needs to be added to the.
I think they are. I think they asked them, have you called 911 or, but we can check that later.
I think the process needs to be reevaluated, because it does seem to be recurring, and there's some reason that they make a call to the gas company or whoever, and then they don't follow up.
Member Voss, I think, in the investigation here, it refers to Exhibit 3, and I'm guessing there's an email change there. But Rancho confirmed that they did not call 911.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like we are all in agreement on that, and let's discuss the 42164C3, which is failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of damage to the gas facility. So, did you see any evidence to the contrary, or do we see enough evidence in this investigation to see the violation for Rancho West in regards to 42164C3?
I see it as a clear violation of all three, so it's just a matter of.
So in order to make this nice and clean and to make our legal team happy, we'll take these one at a time so it's very clear. So we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on the first one, which is a violation of 42162B, excavating without a ticket. Would anyone like to make a motion on that one, on that aspect of the violation?
Member Voss here. I move that we find Rancho West Landscape, Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating.
Okay. I have a motion from Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I second the motion.
Okay. Member Johnson with a second. Madam Secretary, can you please take roll call?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Okay, so violation number one, violation of Government Code 4216, 2B, excavating without a valid ticket, has carried. So let's move on to violation 2, which would be 42164C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services. Would any of the board members like to make a motion?
Member Voss here again. I move that we find Rancho West Landscape, Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.4 C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline.
Okay, I have a motion from Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, second.
I have a motion from Member Voss and a second by Member Johnson. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right. Violation number 2, which is the violation of Government Code 4216 4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services. We have found that Rancho West is in fact in violation of this government code. Moving on to violation number 3, which is Government Code 4216 4C3, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of damage to the natural gas facility. Do I have a board member that would like to make a motion?
Member Voss here. I move that we find Rancho West Landscape Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.4C3, failure to failure to contact the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours of causing damage to a gas pipeline.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, Johnson seconds the motion.
Okay, Member Johnson. I have a motion from Member Voss and a second from Member Johnson. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Okay. It appears that we are unanimous on finding Rancho West Landscaping in violation of all of those government codes presented before us today, 4216-2B, 4216-4C2, and 4216-4C3. So now let's move on to discussing the sanctions for all the violations. Staff is recommending a mandatory completion of the board's education course with an option or with the addition of us to assess a financial penalty. So how are we feeling about that? Sounds like so far we discussed education. Do we agree on that part of it? Do we agree on the education portion of this?
Member Voss here, I agree with that.
Okay. All right, so moving on to the second part, which is financial penalties. Do we want to move on to that discussion? So I'll go ahead and remind us that when discussing an enforcement item, there's some appropriate sanctions that we should be considering. We can look at the type of violation and its gravity, such as risk of or an actual injury, death, or environment or property damage, degree of culpability, which may be measured in part by whether there are intervening acts or omissions by other persons, the respondent's history of violation, respondent's history of work conducted without violations, efforts taken by the respondent to prevent the violations, and once the violation occurs, the efforts taken to mitigate the safety consequences of the violation. So let's just kind of go through that. So if we want to talk about the gravity of it, I think, Member Johns, you brought up that they were using an excavator. That was a great point. I agree with you. That's a big piece of equipment. But let's kind of talk about efforts taken by the respondent to prevent the violation, and once the violation occurred, the efforts taken to mitigate the safety consequences of the violation. Seeing that this was a gas leak, do we feel like there was appropriate safety considerations given by Rancho West Landscaping to prevent further injury, death to the public, to secure safety for all those in the surrounding areas? Is there any evidence to support that they took mitigating measures to protect the public?
Member Charlene, so in my opinion, I believe it's almost common sense, an active gas blowing, you call 911. And from my understanding, the reason we want to call 911 is they have the ability to do things by calling or stopping a gas guy and saying, hey, I have gas blowing, I accidentally cut this thing, yeah, he can go try to stop it, but he doesn't really have the authority to start blocking traffic, stopping the public from coming in, going door to door to tell people to evacuate. I mean, there's a reason you want 911 called to come out there. And I want to point out again that this was licensed contractor. That's got to be, at some point, covered of how serious it is when an active line is blowing. And yes, you want to call the one-call center, or maybe make a phone call to the utility if you know who it is, to get them rolling. But all those other things that I pointed out that are safety concerns were not followed. And we are lucky that it didn't migrate and get to a place where it was an explosion or hurt the actual individuals that are the employees out there.
So that being said, do we feel that sanctions are appropriate at this time?
Member Voss here, I'm a little bit on the fence still with the sanctions in this situation. Fortunately, no one got hurt. Items 2 through 5 on our violation of sanctions, what we point to here. We're not aware that they've had any previous violations, although not to say that they haven't, but we're not aware of that at this time. They seem to have made an effort to show that they are responsible. And of course, we didn't see them respond or refute anything here regarding the what codes they violated. I'm inclined just to stick with the safety course at this point, but I'm open to being convinced otherwise.
Member Charlotte, I am going to ask staff that we do get, even if it's no other violations, we need something to know that was looked at, that there wasn't because we're just not going to remember every kind of case that comes across us. And I think what I'd like to see with the board is that we're consistent and not how we feel one day versus, another board day that we come in maybe a little bit more stringent or things like that. I want to be really consistent on how have we been applying these sanctions in the past, and does it fall into that category? So I think we need some help in that area to say, hey, this is what we've done in the past to these kind of excavators or groups,
I think every investigation stands on its own, and for now, I understand what you're saying, but I would like to read this and see if it changes anything. So I want to just kind of recall back here that the event occurred on November 9th at approximately 1:30 p.m., right? So here is the statement from their Director of Operations. On 11/9 at about 1:30 p.m., I received a call from Enrique stating that he had hit a gas line. I informed him to clear the area and make sure no one on site and notify the construction superintendent. We completed an investigation on the accident and found out that the crew was operating without an active dig alert and current ticket for the job. It expired 11/3/2023. The supervisor did not call the office to inform them of the need to remark. We also found out that the operator, Jorge Morales, did not follow procedures for trenching. He did not have the area marked by the gas company and continued to dig without first locating utilities manually. Both employees have been written up, and they have had been instructed not to continue operating equipment until they have completed retraining. Any further violation by either employee of company policy will result in termination. Here's what concerns me. The response is focused on 2 employees. If this is the Director of Operations, then it's 1:30, and he hasn't called 911 himself. This is not a failure of just 2 employees. This is a failure of the entire infrastructure of a long-standing member of the licensing board, right? So to me, it seems that even in the response that they have, they're trying to say that this won't happen again because we're going to take care of it with these 2 employees. I just see that money motivates, and I consistently have felt that way, because if you have a sanction, then now it has to go higher up. The managers have to come back down and look at how do we fix this systematically. I do believe this deserves a sanction, and I always start off with $10,000, and then we negotiate down from there. but I just want you to understand why I feel that way. It was because if this is the director of operations, and he's being notified at 1:30, and nothing happened, there was no, like, support to the team that's out there in the field. Like, we all been in the field. We know it's crazy in the field. We're trying to stop the leak, coordinate, talk to everybody. It gets crazy, right? So I would think that the in-office could support them in some kind of way. And that's all we have. We have his words, his statement. I don't know what they do. But I can tell they have documents, and they say to call 911 in their own documents. And the director of operations didn't support them and make that call. So I feel that sanctions are appropriate. But I would like to discuss that. The value, I always start at the same value. And then we kind of discuss, like, are there mitigating things that we can reduce that, or are there other things that we can talk about? So in the guidelines that we have is you must also consider evidence that is relevant to any of the following matters. So the respondent voluntarily notified the One Call Center. Cooperation with state agencies during the investigation. I think they did cooperate. Appropriateness of the sanction to the size of the business. I don't really know the size of the business from this. Economic benefit gained from the violation. So I don't see that there is probably any gain, because they probably have to pay for the repairs, which is going to be a big cost, and we do talk about that each time. And then respondent had received one or more information letters, so we don't know that either. So those are the things that we usually consider and we talk about. And I guess let's just turn it over for discussion. What do you guys think?
Are you, Madam Chair, are you thinking that they were negative in doing their role and responsibilities? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we've all been in the field, right? So if this were to happen, if it's a structured response, we know that we have to call the One Call Center, call 911. We know that because we've had this experience. Now, if that's not core to them, that has to become core. And right now, it sounds like from their response, they're looking at these two employees like, hey, if we just fix those two employees, everything else will be fine. And so that's my concern. I don't want this to happen again. The public depends on us. We are what stands between Californians continuing to be at risk for these kinds of incidents. And I do understand that sanctions are very costly, but this was an excavator just trenching, right? And luckily, nothing worse happened.
Knowing that the majority of the ones we're getting are 911 missed calls or not calling to 911, and I know that we have our work cut out for us to inform that, and it's a recent change in the law, and education will cover that again if they went through the experience. But due to the gravity of this incident, I mean, it's big because it was a 2-inch gas line, right? My only concern is we still have some missing facts, right? And we don't know if they've had this issue done, were they violating before, what's the history of the company? We don't know that. And so to set a price on something that we really don't have answers to all those questions, I don't think it's the way we should go at this point in time.
So I guess what I'm asking is, do we have the answers in this investigation, just this alone? Were efforts taken by the respondents to prevent the violation? And once the violation occurred, were the efforts taken to mitigate the safety consequences of the violation? Do we see evidence of that in this investigation? And if your answer is we don't have enough evidence, I understand, but based on their own words, I don't see any evidence that they were trying to reduce the amount of impact to the public.
Member Johns, probably the biggest concern I see in this is just their process of excavation. There's an email from their director of operations. He said, we potholed with a round shovel or trenching shovel. The gas line was where it was marked. They had already uncovered the gas line, but dirt fell on it from the outside and covered up the area where they had potholed. part of me, the whole goal is for potholing and our regulations and plans is you locate the line first, you hand dig it, you find where it is, and then you can proceed at the next level with the bigger equipment and the production excavation equipment. They had done it, but to me, it's sloppy work. It was covered up. They didn't know where it was. Their spotters weren't working. So to me, it's like it was poor practice at best. And this whole thing, by having the ticket delayed and all that stuff, it's just poor practice. So I'm kind of on the fence on, saying that we should go further than just education. It seems to me that they should know that. Everybody working in it should know. You locate the line. If it was marked, you would know where it is. So their practices, to me, were the real issue here. They did, take measures to, contact gas company, move people away. Wrong as it was, we were supposed to call 911. They didn't. I agree with you guys on that. But like I say, the excavation to me was their the biggest violation.
And I want to define new, because calling 911 hasn't been that new. It's years already in place. Even electronic positive response isn't that new. It's years in place. So I just want to point out that every year the call centers print new books. They tell everybody, hey, these are the new regulations. I don't think lack of knowledge or failure to educate yourself every year, because the call centers continuously update everyone, all their members. I don't think that's a fair excuse for anyone. I mean, then I would speed like, hey, they didn't, 5 years ago it was faster here, right? That's not going to get me anywhere. And I don't think it should, what is at risk is such a huge risk, This could have been an explosion. This could have been another San Bruno event. So I just want to, focus on that we already found them in violation. If sanctions are appropriate to motivate an industry, then I'm going to support that, to motivate this Rancho West Landscaping to really overhaul their policies. So I was at 10,000. It didn't sound like I had any support at 10,000. Is there a quantity that we can all get behind?
Member Sharling, so I keep falling back to a state license member, and we're going to make a recommendation to this board,
yes,
and then they're going to take a look at it. I believe one is warranted. The amount, I think we need to talk about, but this was not someone who just started a business and they're doing their best and they're kind of putting it together. This is a seasoned person and went through a lot of training. They're out giving bids, and I'm sure they're using, hey, I'm a state licensed, member to get paid more money for that, title. So this was a failure. I don't think it's $10,000 failure, but we need to get their attention. And I would start off that I could support, which is $1,000 sanction.
Okay.
Member Johns, I kind of had 2,000 in the back of my head, so I'm kind of thinking like Randy, it's Member Sharland. Let's definitely wanted to say something to get their attention.
Member Johnson, do we have data on what we find folks already? So what were some of the things we found, we put out there, and what were the reasons for them? What were the facts related to them? To throw a number out there and you gave this one 10,000, you gave this one 5,000. Cases are different. So what criteria are we using to come up with these numbers?
I think that's very valid. I think it's been brought up before. I think we need to move through these cases, and I think we do need to put this on our agenda. We need to have the state licensing board come in and say, we've given you a few of these. How are they, and let them come and talk to us and see how they're looking at these on some of these recommendations that we're making, and how they're receptive to these, and are they passed through or are they not?
And I just want to put out there, like, if we put values like, hey, this will only cost you $1,000, this is only $5,000, there's incentive to be like, well, I'm going to factor in not having a ticket, and it'll only cost me this amount of money, right? So let's focus on what it is. The sanction is not for anyone to back calculate what's the risk, like what's the cost of the risk. That's if the violation has perfection and no one gets hurt. Let's take the opposite, like someone passes away in this, and now what's the price of a life? So we're looking at money as a sanction to mitigate further instances of this. So I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I want to put this in the context that we as the board are supposed to be, and we're supposed to be protecting the public. And so there have been cases where I thought 200,000 would have been like not enough, right? Because it was real close, and it was. But this one, I think, if you guys want to start with a lower amount, I want to know why it's, for a seasoned professional, why we would say, hey, $1,000, that's like stationary for a month, right? Is that motivating to make the change at an operational level?
So, Member Johns, part of my reasoning here is we have gone through the warning stages of education. So now I think we're just progressively moving to say, hey, we're going to issue some, fines, and so I think that we're making a statement by putting a price, and but I think we still are in that getting the word out and going through the process. Just how we've discussed here, it's the severity of things. We're seeing minor things, but they are adding up, and if it continues, we have to raise the stakes. So I agree with you, but I think right now, getting a financial penalty is a statement.
Member Jones, as it relates to, the actual enforcement of that has to come from the CSLB.
Mm-hmm.
So we can name it whatever we want, but if they're not going to collect it, we're just going through the steps. Mm-hmm. And so I agree with Member Charlene is that, we need to find out what's going to be acceptable. Just to throw a number out there, they're not collecting. It's a waste of our time. Even though we want to enforce things and get things done, but
so a waste of time is very dangerous, because we would hope that the State Contractors Licensing Board would like to keep all of their members in good standing, right? And like Member Charlene said, hey, I can charge more, I can get top dollar, or I have this history of being certified, of being approved. So if we make enough recommendations, and let's say they don't collect them, then that's for us to start looking at, hey, where's the gap? That's for us to circle back to. I don't think we should look at that part of it. We should stand on our responsibility, which is 4216, and did they violate it? We agreed that they did. And now we look at sanctions. Do we think that they acted in a way that was in the best faith of the people of California? I don't see it, and so therefore, let's really discuss sanctions. Sounds like there's three of us that would like sanctions. So what is a value that you guys would think would send the message to not only this contractor, but all contractors, that they need to operate on a valid permit? It's their responsibility to make sure the permit is valid. 2, that they call 911 in the event that there is a leak, and that they call the notification center to make sure that they record that there was an incident. So what is motivating for that?
Member Voss here, I'll just reiterate, when we started doing this here several years ago, the board in general leaned on education more so than the penalty. What's been brought up here today is that we have issued some penalties here in recent years. In particular, I think we're where they'd come cases had come before us, again, for the same, operator, excavator, whatever the case might be. I'm on the fence a little bit too, because, yeah, we can, Madam Chair, you make a good point, we should stand on our own. But I don't know, at the end of the day, what we've done to date, has any of it come to fruition? I mean, how many people have actually gone through the education course because the state contractors license board said that's what they're going to do? We have no real feel for how this is all, comes down after we make these motions. And that's, I guess, a little apprehension on my part. We can go through these motions, but what, at the end of the day, what are the final results?
Yeah.
But maybe that doesn't matter here. Maybe to your point, and that's been brought up here, maybe we do need to start starting these penalties at a modest level, so to speak, to start getting the word out. And like I said, that's why I said I'm open to leaving this open here a little bit in my own mind. In this particular case, I think this, did the contractor just gloss over everything here in their response based on what how they were interviewed? Possibly. We can see from their procedures, it's lacking the 911 or calling the call center. And again, when they go get their contractor's license 20 years ago and whatever future updates they need to take, is any of this being taught? What is the motivation to pick up a code book and say, well, I'm going to just look for the latest updates? I mean, as a practical matter, as humans, I don't know that we do that. So I don't know.
Yeah, so when I want to just address the idea that, what are we doing? When I started this, when we first proposed this call 911, I think my son was entering kindergarten, and he's about to be in 6th grade. So for him, that's a very long time, right? So this has been on the books for his elementary years. He's about to start middle school. And I leave my children all the time to come here to make sure that, again, the focus is the people of California, and I think we're making a positive impact. And I think we can make more of an impact. We've done carrot for a while. I think it's time to introduce the stick, right? So if 10,000 is too high, is 5,000 something that we can all agree to send the message that, it's apparent they had the education. They documented it. What's motivating them to follow the law? Speeding, ticket. Tickets, insurance goes up. Right? That's motivating. I'm going to speed like Miss Daisy, right? Driver Miss Daisy. Or I'm going to drive like Miss Daisy so that I don't get any speeding tickets. That's motivation. We have the ability. So if you want to ask what can we do, we can start imposing sanctions. So I am going to do something that I never really do. I hope I can do this. I'm making a motion. Can I do that? I can do that. All right.
Are you a board member?
Well, when you're the facilitator, I'm not always sure I can do that. So I'm making a motion that we impose a sanction on Rancho West Landscaping for $5,000 to the California State Licensing Board as a result of their violations of 4216-2B, 4216-4C2, and 4216-4C3. Do I have a second?
Member Johns, I guess I'll second that. I'm a little higher than I was thinking, but yeah, it makes a statement. I think we can. I think the violation is worthy of it.
Okay. I have a motion by Member Munoz and by Member Johns. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll?
Charland?
No.
Harlan, no. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
No.
Johnson, no. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
No.
Okay,
Voss,
so
no.
motion does not carry. Do we have a sanction amount that anyone would support?
Member Charlene, $1,000.
Okay.
Okay. Member Voss, I'll go along with 1,000.
Okay. So do I have a motion?
Okay, Member Voss, I'll make a motion. We're supposed to wrap these all up, correct? Into
Yeah, so we
one big
can,
bow?
we could include
Okay.
all of them.
Member Voss, I move that we recommend to the Contractor State License Board that it find the respondent in violation of Government Code Section 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating. 2, 4216.4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline. 3, 4216.4C3, failure to contact the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours of causing damage to a gas pipeline, and that the respondent be ordered to take the Underground Safety Board's education course and be subject to a financial penalty of $1,000.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Board Member Charlene, second.
Okay. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll call?
Charlene?
Yes.
Charlene, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Okay, so that was a spicy one. Let's move on to item number 8. The decision on the NOPV to Lamassey Iron Works investigation CAS 01566 L3N2D0. So let's check for recusals. Does anyone have to recuse themselves? Violations. So staff is recommending that we review Lamassey's Iron Works actions for violations of a Government Code 42162B, excavating without a valid ticket, Government Code 42164C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to gas facility. The proposed sanctions are mandatory completion of the board's education course, a financial penalty to be determined by the board, jurisdiction, contractor state licensing board. So Lamassey Iron Workers provided a written response. Let's see, where is that one? So we have a written response from them. So let me go ahead and, I'll add this to reading things. Okay. So let me find that one. Lamassey, okay. So let's review what is before us as a board today. So Lamassey Iron Workers was hired to install security parking barriers at 77 Las Tunas Drive in Arcadia, California, as part of the owner's attempt to prevent recreational vehicles from parking there overnight, which is in Exhibit 3. Lamassey Iron Workers hold a license from the California Contractor State Licensing Board with a C23 ornamental metals classification. On November 2nd, 2023, Lamassey Iron Workers was digging with a post-hole digger that struck and damaged a Southern California Gas Company half-inch natural gas line. SoCal Gas was notified of the damage at 10:34 a.m. on November 2nd, 2023, Exhibit 1. During this telephone interview with the investigators on January 5th, 2024, Ruben Diaz Jr. stated he had firsthand knowledge of the damage. He was with his crew at 77 Las Tunas Drive when the line was damaged. Diaz explained that they were digging the dirt with post-hole diggers when they cut the natural gas pipeline. After damaging the line, he observed the dirt was blowing everywhere in the hole, making it difficult to see anything. He and other Lamassey Iron Workers tried to find a shutoff but couldn't. Diaz called his uncle, a construction worker, who said if the damage was before the meter, there was no way to shut it off. Okay. So since they did respond, I will read what they said. So this is in response to our NOPV processes. They have the, no, don't read it? Okay. So I won't read it. So, there's other things that they said in this investigation, that they did not have the ticket before the November 2nd, 2023, and obtained, one for the follow-up excavation. So they returned a week later to update their work. So that's the summary of what occurred. So who would like to start the discussion on this one?
Madam Chair, based on the information they provided, we know that on 11/2 at 11:49, evidently they damaged it first. They called in a rush ticket, and they had already started work for the ticket. And then right after, on 11/2 at 11:51, they called in a damage ticket, which you probably have to do, be in sequential order. And then the other issue I have around the ticket part of it was that on 11/8, they called in a no-response ticket on all the utilities that didn't respond. So, based on what I see, there was no ticket evidence in the one-call search, and also the follow-up information on the damage ticket and the no-response ticket. So, in terms of the violation for failure to notify the one-call center before excavating is evident based on the fact that they even mentioned it, so.
Okay, so you're talking about item number 1. Do you want to just jump ahead and talk about number 2, or you guys want to just continue talking about excavating without a valid ticket? Is everyone in agreement that they excavated without a valid ticket?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Member Johnson, I'm just going to have you continue on with that second item, 42164C2. Did you see any evidence of the failure to contact 911 emergency services?
If I can recall on this one, they did not call 911. They did call SoCal Gas, but did not call 911 based on the information that was provided in the investigation.
Okay, so do we want further discussion, or do we want to just move on into a motion to find them in violation of item 1 or 2? Do we have any disagreement that they didn't call 911? I didn't see any evidence in here that they called 911. Yeah, they didn't know about it. That's what they said. Okay, so do I have a motion supporting evidence that they were in violation of 42162B and 42164C2?
Member Voss, I move that we find Lamasi Ironworks violated Government Code Section 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating.
Okay, I have a motion from Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, second.
Okay. All right, Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll?
Yes.
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Okay, motion carries. Now let's talk about Government Code 42164C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas facility. Do I have a motion on the floor for that one? Or someone would like to make a motion?
Member Voss, I move that we find Lamasi Ironworks violated Government Code Section 4216.4 C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline.
All right, I have a motion from Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, I second.
Okay. Madam Secretary, can you please call roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. John,
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson,
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz,
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss,
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right, motion carries. So now let's move on to sanctions. So, staff is recommending the mandatory completion of the board's education course and a financial penalty to be determined by us. This one is similar to the other one, except, they did call the regional center after, like, Member Johnson identified in the earlier discussions after the incident.
Member Charlene, and again, this is a state licensing board member, so I do believe that there should be sanctions.
Okay. So would we like to impose the same sanction of $1,000 like we did the last one and the, education?
Member Voss, it seems appropriate.
Okay, do I have a motion for that?
Member Voss here, I move that we recommend to the Contractor State License Board that it find Lamasi Iron Works in violation of Government Code Section 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating. Second violation, 4216.4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline. And that Lamasi Iron Works be ordered to complete the Underground Safety Board's education course and receive a financial penalty of $1,000.
Okay, I have a motion by Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, second.
All right. I have a motion by Member Voss and a second by Member Johnson. Madam Secretary, can you call the roll, please?
Charland,
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns,
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson,
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz,
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss,
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right, so motion carries. We can move on to item number 9, which is decision on NOPV to all construction investigation CAS 01575, B9F6K1. So recusals, does anyone need to recuse themselves? All right, so staff is suggesting we review for 4 violations on this one. The first one is Government Code 42162B, excavating without a valid ticket. A second count of 42162B, excavating without a valid ticket, and we can go into the discussion about that, so that would be 2 counts. Government Code 42164C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to gas facility. Number 4, Government Code 42164C3, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of damage to natural gas facility. Okay, so here we go. The staff is also recommending proposed sanctions, the mandatory completion of the education and the financial penalty to be determined by the board. So let's review the case. On December 12, 2023, All Construction was digging with a shovel or a post hole digger to install bollards and damaged a natural gas line operated by the Southern California Gas Company. Witness statements were not consistent regarding the type of tool. After damaging the line, All Construction, Inc. covered the hole with plywood called SoCal Gas and then waited until SoCal Gas arrived and repaired the line. All Construction had contacted the Regional Notification Center before digging. After causing the damage, All Construction did not telephone 911 or notify the Regional Notification Center of the damage. Additionally, after SoCal Gas repaired the line, All Construction resumed excavating without contacting the Regional Notification Center. So in case you missed that, they were excavating, they called because there was damage, and then after they repaired it, they started excavating again. So that would be the 2 counts. So that's how the investigation lays it out. So our job is to look at this and see if we see evidence to support these 4 violations. So I'm going to ask that the board look at the 2 counts at the same time, and then we can look at 3 and 4. So it would be 42162B. The first count would be what was immediately preceded the leak.
Member Foster, I think we just made a note here. This is where I think they've indicated they were working under the primary contractor's ticket.
And so I'm not sure how, can you elaborate on how that aligns to, is this support of the violation, or is this evidence?
No, I'm not saying
Oh.
that. I'm gonna agree that they're in violation.
They're in
but-
yeah.
But I'm just saying that they were under the misnomer that they were working under a general contractor's dig ticket when they should have been operating under their own.
Their own ticket,
Which
okay.
is a message needs to get out and has been getting out. So it's, everybody, it's for a long time been saying that it's the general's responsibility, and no, you're the excavator, you need to get the ticket. And that message has been clear for a long time. And, but yeah, that's, I know a lot of people in the field still use that and don't understand it. So the education and the word needs to get out.
Okay, so are we all in agreement that that they failed to notify the regional center at 42162B on the first count? Are we all aligned on that?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, okay. So let's move to the second one, and then failure to notify the second time. This would be in the timeline after the leak, and then they continued to excavate. Is there discussion on that, or are we aligned to the investigation's findings?
I would concur, yes.
You would concur, yes? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Are we all, okay. So I think we all agree. If we there's a nice summary on page, I think, 4, and it kind of gives the dates. So findings on December 12th, all construction excavated without first contacting the regional notification center when it dug holes to install the bollards. Number 2, they failed to call the 911 emergency services after the natural gas line. Number 3, they failed to call the regional notification center within 48 hours of the damage it caused to the gas line. And number 4, they did not contact the regional notification center before digging to install bollards. Again, December 12th, the same day. So they had lots of different areas they were working in. So that's the summary. So I'll just go over this again. It sounds like at least most of us were in agreement with the second count. Is there any more discussion on the second count?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I just want to bring up a point that Member Voss has brought up, about them being under the standing that the general had a ticket. And this is a mobile home community. And one of the things over years is that the mobile home park is who actually owns the facilities included within that community. Is it one of those master issues, or is it primary? So I can see him kind of not really knowing who's responsible for calling in a ticket, because, like I mentioned, on mobile home parks, it's somewhat confusing. And if they were ordered by the mobile home park owner, they should have known that as well. So just kind of muddied the water a little bit for you.
Remember, Charlotte, and I would give that to a new company that's just coming out there, don't understand the rules. It's a free service, and I have to believe, unless the state licensing board comes in here and tells us that the law is not covered in their training, which I'd be very surprised, that's in there. You call in a ticket, you're working, and you get a ticket in your name. And I believe they knew about it. It's, they got a lot of stuff here where continue to work even, with a ticket being called in, they're still in violation.
Okay.
And that's huge after a gas leak. So, Carl, you were asking for, one where they should have learned a lesson. They didn't even learn it on the same day. They hit this thing and they said, move down and let's keep on doing our job because we're going to fall behind. They're not motivated by safety and what could happen. from what I read in this.
I think that's a good point. So, in this, on page 3, they have a really good, the investigator did a really good job here. They wrote, Crystal Barlow of All Construction explained to the investigator that it is typical the prime contractor's responsibility to get a ticket, which is false, by the way. And because All Construction, Inc. was a subcontractor on this project, All Construction was not responsible for obtaining the ticket. Again, that's false, everyone. Further, Barlow stated that there were field marks when they arrived like you would see after a ticket was created. So that dispels any belief that since this was a warehouse, they were exempt. They saw the marks there, or not the warehouse, at a mobile home park. So that dispels the idea that they didn't think that this was needed at the mobile home park. They could see that the marks were there. They had already been there, so they know that they're going to be needed. So I think that this investigation does a good job, and I agree with Member Charlin. So do we find enough evidence, as Member Charlin said, that not even in the same day did they learn? Do we find enough evidence for items 1 and 2?
Madam Chair?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to find out 4216 where there's an exception for calling in a ticket when you're working for a general. So, because you just mentioned that that's not true. So, but there is an exception in the law.
Okay, you want to pull that up?
And I believe it's if you're an employee or you're an employee of that company, then you could be exempt because you're under the direction of the person who has the ticket. When you're not under the direction of the person that has the ticket, and you're just saying, hey, there's one that's called, I guess I'll just find these marks out there. However, they don't know how they were delineated. They don't know what communication took place with the ticket holder, and that's why it has to be an employee or someone attached to them where they're giving them all the information. Hey, we called in this ticket, and they asked for more time, or they marked in this manner, and that information gets to this person. When they're outside of that, they're their own company, and they're not following under the direction of the person of the ticket, that's when you have issues. And that's when you have problems, and that's why I believe the law says to have the ticket in your own name, even though it's duplicate, the one call centers both will take the ticket, right, even if it's exact same description.
And so, to your point, in this investigation, there was no indication. Nobody referenced the ticket number because there was no ticket number in the span of this window. I think there was a letter, let's see, what exhibit is that, from Ms. Dahl. I can't remember which exhibit that was, but let me find it really quick. Let's see. Exhibit 10, yeah. So from Exhibit 10, based on the discussion that Member Charlin just brought up, after searching our records from 6/1/23 through 12/31/23, we're unable to find any Diggler tickets for the location at 173 Comanche in Topanga. I hope this information is helpful. So let's make sure that we're aware there was no ticket, and there was no reference to this ticket. There was no chain of custody to ensure that everyone had a ticket. That there was, from the email, I think from Crystal Barlow, from her words, she said that they thought there was a ticket because there were lines on the ground, and that does not fall within the requirements of 4216. So I think the evidence here does not support that there was any effort to comply with 4216, 4216 2B.
Member Voss for the last 20 years. And that goes back to their letter that Mr. Fortuna sent in.
This is a new book, so take me out there before, but it's in there.
Okay, so let's break this up into sections. do we want to go through and just do the first two and keep discussing, or, because there's so many of them, or do you want to see if we have a motion on the first two and then continue discussing on the second two, or do we want to just keep discussing? Any preferences?
Well, Member Voss, I don't see, there's no denial on the 911 or the 48, is there?
Okay, I don't see, does anybody have any, okay, so do we see that the investigation supports that there was a failure to call 911, 42164C2? Are we all in agreement on that? Okay, what about 42164C3, failure to report damage to the Regional Notification Center within the 48 hours? Do we see any evidence that they try to call the regional center?
Did, Member Voss, and maybe I lost track here, did anybody read the response from Mr. Fortin?
Yeah, there was they did respond,
Yeah, it was related to the general or something like that.
yeah.
Yes, you can see the general would have notified them that they would.
Yeah, and out of their response, there is a line that I think we should discuss under the sanctions that kind of stood out to me. So let's take this one at a time, since it sounds like we're all in agreement so far. Do I have a motion on the first violation?
Sure.
Which is 42162B.
Member Voss here. I move that we find All Construction, Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating tree damage.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, second.
Okay. I have a motion by Member Voss, a second by Member Johnson. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right. So let's move on to the second violation, which is a second count of Government 42162B, excavating without a valid ticket.
Member Johns, yeah, sorry to jump in, but this one is basically saying they didn't, after they had the damage and they started digging again and they didn't get a ticket then. It seems like it's redundant, but obviously it is the case, so I don't know if we want to.
Are you making a motion?
Well, I don't know. I'm not making a motion. I'm just discussing it. You know, it's like we're getting them for not having a ticket for the damage. They're repairing the damage as part of it. It's almost like a continuation, so I would venture to say it is redundant.
So are you saying we should seek it out second, or just?
That was for discussion.
Okay.
If anybody else felt about it,
Well,
I won't make a motion to do it or not do it.
so Member Sharman, so we have four violations, right? We have them hitting and continue to work in addition to that. And then if I'm reading this correctly, tell me if I'm wrong, that they hit the line less than a foot from some old markings within a tolerance zone.
Within 6 inches, they said.
Okay, so we have bad potholing, or probably no potholing at all. They're just going for, I mean, how many things in here are saying, these guys are just motoring on through, and, you know, you brought up on the last case about, the cost of repair, throw that out. As a locator, in my experience, it's not all the time, but you'll hear every once in a while someone say, it's cheaper to hit it than to pothole it and protect it and to do it, it's cheaper to do it that way. So that's what they said. I didn't say that, but that was, mentioned. And here's a case where they knew, or they saw the old markings, didn't call in a ticket, didn't get them refreshed, and didn't do a really good job potholing. So I think this is different than any case we've heard. However, I do believe what Marshall said, which is what is the CLB doing with any amount that we give them? But, you know, I do believe it deserves sanctions.
Okay. I just want to put it out there that the police never consider if, with all these tickets, if the insurance is raising your premiums or not, right? Like, they're like, okay, we're going to do the ticket, and if the insurance goes up, that's on the insurance, right? So just want to make sure we're not conflating two separate entities and our responsibilities.
Member Voss, I mean, the reason there's a second violation is they didn't stop, you know, to get a ticket and wait the required, 48 hours, right? Which is a little longer than that. But anyway, my point is that's why they have the second post violation.
So do I have a motion, or does anybody want to make a motion?
Member Voss here, I move that we find all Construction, Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating. This is post damage.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Member Voss. Do I have a second? I will second the motion.
I'm sorry, I can second it for you.
All right, I have a motion by Member Voss and a second by Member Munoz. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
Did you call me?
Thank you.
You skipped me.
I think it failed, Madam Chair.
Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to violation number 3, which is 42164C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to gas facility. It sounded like we were discussing and we were in agreement. Do I have a motion?
Member Voss here. I move that we find all Construction, Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline.
So I have a motion from Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Member Johnson, second.
Thank you, Member Johnson. So I have a motion from Voss and a second from Johnson. Madam Secretary, can you please call the roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right, motion carries. Let's move on to item number 4, which is violation of Government Code 42164C3, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center of damage to a natural gas facility. Sounded like in discussion we were on agreement, so do I have a motion?
Member Voss here. I move that we find all Construction, Inc. violated Government Code Section 4216.4C3, failure to contact the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours of causing damage to a gas pipeline.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Charland. All right. I have a motion from Member Voss and a second by Member Charland. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right, motion carries. So we have now, just as a reminder, we have found all construction in violation of 42162B, a second count of 42162B, violation of 42164C2, and 42164C3. Now let's move on to sanctions. Staff is recommending mandatory completion of the board's education course and a financial penalty to be determined by the board. Now, I think, Member Charland, you had a very great point about the severity of this and all the steps, the mitigating steps they could have taken, but they didn't. So let's just, I think we're all in agreement about education. Is that correct? Okay, so now let's move on to the sanction. as Member Charlene, as you had said before, what sanction amount do you think would motivate this firm to make better choices and to learn the lesson, since they didn't seem to learn on the very day that the gas leak occurred?
Member Charlene, so I look at this one as if it happened and this is the second offense. What would we do with the second offense? Now, the only thing that's kind of different is they didn't get their $1,000 or they didn't, and do something different. But that's why I'm not going to say something crazy and go into the $5,000, $10,000, because it kind of happened so fast. But I still fall back to Marshall's point is we're coming up with these amounts, and we're not really these recommendations actually, and how they're actually being taken. So I'm definitely with $1,000. I don't.
Member Voss, I still conclude that they may still, even after all this, be at the time were thinking they were operating under the other ticket, which is totally wrong here. I get it, but one could argue that. The main thing with this excavator, if whatever we do to them changes the behavior to where they get a ticket every time they have a job out there like this, going forward, then we've accomplished something. Whether it's going to happen after we do this, one way or the other, I don't know.
Member Johnson, again, it's the mobile home park, and they stated in a response that they were working under the general, but yet still under the direction of the management company of the park. And they're the ones who maintain the property and the utilities and everything there. And so I agree that there should be some financial, but not as much as $1,000 because of those concerns with the mobile home park and the history that I know about them.
And Member Johns, kind of adding on to that, this particular work is putting in traffic bollards in a mobile home park, like Member Johnson said. It's hand equipment, and it's, if you noticed the pictures, they weren't the 2-inch lines put in by a gas company as a main, like the other project we were talking about. So these are, mobile home parks are notorious about having utilities all over. I'm surprised they had a mark knowing where the plastic gas lines were, but in any case, the severity of what they were doing here is not in the same par as bringing in excavator power equipment. But they do need to get their tickets. I don't know if they would have, if they did everything right, they probably still would have struck, or they could have possibly struck a line. I don't know if we would have saved that, but certainly they have to follow that procedure, for understanding the system, how it works, and the safety precautions. So yeah, I think it's still following the same rules, but it is a different. You can see those lines, the depths and things like that. They're working in an area that's even more dangerous than out in the street when that's standard construction methods or practices.
Member Johnson, are you inferring that the mobile home was also acting as an operator? Because where this line was damaged was clearly a Southern California gas line that was owned by them because they took the responsibility to repair it. But in a mobile home park, you could definitely have a combination of utilities that are owned by a traditional operator as well as those owned by the mobile home park.
That's correct.
And we already found them in violation. So the time to discuss if they were in violation or not has passed, right? So this is sanctions. And I just want to point out the original $10,000 that I seem to start with is not arbitrary. It's the cost of a casket for the excavator and their spotter. It's about $5,000 a casket. So although that may sound arbitrary, it is not, because I just want to, that is the placeholder that I've used from the beginning of this, is because I don't want to have, I don't want to have to think that we're not making, choices that are protecting the individuals on the floor. Like Marjorie, like Member, De La Torre used to say, the boots on the ground. So, do we agree that, I know you started with $1,000, you had said that this would be the second violation, the $1,000 would have been the first one. Are you suggesting that 2,000, or are you and then I hear a discussion that maybe no sanctions, because of the, mobile home parks, earlier discussion, where are we at? Are we looking at a monetary sanction, or did we walk away from that?
Member Johnson, I did not say anything about no sanctions.
Okay.
I just don't agree with the amount of 1,000.
Member Sherlin, so I heard, and I think this is important to say, yes, they're in a mobile home park. That's even worse, in my opinion, because they were also a license, I believe, a license under the state licensing board. They are working in an area, and what Marcia was pointing out a little while ago is the mobile home park might own their own facilities, meaning the facilities will come in by the utility companies and then turn over to them, and then those are out there. So the awareness to the crew, the training to the crew, the instructions to the crew should have been, we're going to possibly run into stuff here that could hurt us, and we got to be, very careful with what we do. And working inside the tolerance zone, I'm sorry, but that is basic. You pothole and you find it, and then you would work and put your bollard in as close as you need to. But you don't just try to say, oh, it's there, and I'm sure that guy's locator was perfect, dead on, so I'm going to go ahead 6 inches from it and go for it. So again, I'm okay with 1,000. Going off these other numbers, I have a problem with what they're doing with these. That's kind of my biggest thing, that, do we go with, because I'm very upset with this excavator. I see a lot of issues with them, but I don't know if we're just throwing numbers around that nothing even happens with them anyway, and that's kind of my problem with it.
I think it's us taking a stand, right? All the other things, change takes time, but as long as we remain within our jurisdiction, the next dominoes will fall with time.
Member Foster, I'm fine with sticking with our $1,000 number for this one as well.
Even though it's a second violation, within the same day. Is it fair to go to the 2,000 since it's 2 violations?
For the last 20 years, he's been operating under the guise that he's working for someone else and under someone else's ticket.
Has he?
I'll take that for this time, not next time.
Yeah, Member Johns, I still think of it as the first violation.
Okay, so if there's further discussion, otherwise we can have a motion.
Okay. Well,
I'm still sticking with 2,000 seems fair based on your, the desire to keep an alignment even with today, since the second violation, it should be about $2,000 from your own discussions.
Madam Chair, let me make this comment too. It's not just what we come up with. He's probably gotten some other invoices that he's probably addressing, even though that's not our issue or concern. But from a punitive perspective, he's probably getting hit from other directions as well. Not to say that's good or bad. I'm just saying that if you're saying, or if we're thinking that 2,000 and he ain't getting nothing else, that's probably maybe true or not true. But just
yeah, I know we've talked about this before, and that has been in the past when we have had sanctions, monetary sanctions, that has been part of the discussion. But we only are in charge of 4216, so we should be assigning, based on the violations. And I read them before, and I'll read this one again. The appropriate sanctions if the board finds that there's a violation, sanctions should be discussed in this format. Not referencing other people or other entities, but the type of violations and its gravity, such a risk or actual injury and death, and Member Charlene did a good job of that, or environment or property damage. 2, the degree of culpability, which may be measured in part whether there were intervening acts or omissions by other persons. 3, respondent's history of violations, and you all mentioned that this is, the second time, and we voted that this was the second time in the same day. As seen in the 2 violations of the same issue. Respondent's history of work conducted without violations. We don't have that. Efforts taken by the respondent to prevent the violations, and once the violation occurred, the efforts taken to mitigate the safety consequences of the violations. So those are the things, that's the format that we're supposed to discuss this in. And then there's other things for us to consider. So if we have an amount, we can consider like extenuating circumstances to bring that down. Respondents' voluntary notification of the one call center. They did not do that. Cooperation with state agencies during the investigation. They seem to be participating. Appropriateness of the sanctions on the size of the business. Economic benefit gained from the violation. So Member Charlene suggested that they were like trying to get it done on time, which I think is a motivation for a lot of people to get it done on time. Respondents had received one or more information letters from the board investigator. We don't have them as a previous violator, and other facts considered. So those are the terms that we should be discussing this in. So I would ask that you guys consider 2,000 just to stay consistent with today's, since there's 2 violations of the same thing.
Or do it higher.
Or do it higher. I'm good with higher because I told you what my reasoning has been since the beginning.
Let's put it to a motion.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have a motion on the floor for this?
Member Voss here. I move that we recommend to the Contractor State License Board to define the respondent in violation of Government Code Sections 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating as pre-damaged. Item 2, 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating as post-damage. Item 3, 4216.4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline. And 4, 4216.4C3, failure to contact the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours of causing damage to a gas pipeline. And does the respondent be ordered to take complete the Underground Safety Board's education course and a financial penalty of $2,000?
I have a motion for Member Voss. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, I have a motion from Member Voss and a second by Member Charlene. Madam Secretary, can you please take the roll?
Charlene?
Yes.
Charlene, yes. Johns?
Madam Chair, excuse me.
I have a motion, so we have to, and we have a vote now, so you can vote yes or no, but we can't break the vote. Go ahead, continue.
Can you repeat the
Johns?
motion?
Can you repeat the motion, please? Sorry, we have already started voting, but go ahead and repeat it, please.
The motion that Member Voss did?
Or would you like to repeat it, please?
Sure, you want me to read it back? Okay. Member Voss here, I'm repeating the motion. I move that we recommend to the Contractor State License Board that it find the respondent in violation of Government Code Section Item 1, 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating is pre-damaged. Item 2, 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating as post-damage. Item 3, 4216.4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline. Item 4, 4216.4C3, failure to contact the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours of causing damage to a gas pipeline. And that the respondent be ordered to take the Underground Safety Board's education course and a financial penalty of $2,000.
Okay, and can you repeat the last votes, and then we'll continue on?
The vote left off at Johns?
No. Johns, no.
Johns, no. Johnson?
No.
Johnson, no. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
No.
Voss, no.
Okay, motion did not carry.
You know was I the only one that wasn't the same one, right?
That was the same one.
No. Did you say 3,000 or 2,000?
I said 2,000 in
No,
both.
the first time.
He said
2,000.
2,000 the first time as well.
Okay. Do we have that recording? No, the only reason.
Did you hear
the only
3,000?
Okay, so that, since that
The only
didn't,
reason I care is because it's what I thought we were trying to do well, go ahead. Let's continue.
No,
I'll talk to you later.
so we didn't carry that one. So, for those of you that voted no, is there a better sanction that you guys would like to discuss?
Yeah, Member Johns, it was just inconsistent for me to do the 1,000 and then to go to 2,000 for this in my mind. So I would go for the motion of 1,000 again.
I'll go with 1,000 again.
I agree.
Okay. So I need a new motion.
Okay.
So I guess my turn to motion.
You want to do it?
Well, I got to find the reading on it. Go ahead and do it, Marla. I'll second it.
All right. Member Voss here. I move that we recommend to the Contractor State License Board that it find the respondent in violation of Government Code Section, Code 1, 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating as pre-damage. 2, 4216.2B, failure to notify the Regional Notification Center before excavating as post-damage. 3, 4216.4C2, failure to contact 911 emergency services after causing damage to a gas pipeline. And 4, 4216.4C3, failure to contact the Regional Notification Center within 48 hours of causing damage to a gas pipeline. And that the respondent be ordered to complete the Underground Safety Board's education course and pay a financial penalty of $1,000.
Okay, so I have a motion by Member Voss.
And seconded, Member Johns.
Okay, so I have a motion by Member Voss and a second by Member Johns. Madam Secretary, can you please call roll?
Charland?
Yes.
Charland, yes. Johns?
Yes.
Johns, yes. Johnson?
Yes.
Johnson, yes. Munoz?
Yes.
Munoz, yes. Voss?
Yes.
Voss, yes.
All right. I think after all the motion carried on that one. So I think after all of items 1 through 9, we should take a let's make it a 15-minute break, come back at 3:20, and then we'll proceed with item number 10. So we'll be back at 3:20.
Yeah, I'm going to throw those all away in part.
All right, welcome back, everyone. We are moving on
This
to
conference
item
is
number...
being recorded. Only the main conference is recorded.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. We're moving on to item number 10. We took an extended break because I asked facilities to make it cooler in here. It's very hot in here. So, item number 10, the next item is information item on updates from the 811 notification centers on their metrics and activities. So we usually, as per the usual, either Mr. James Wingate or Ms. Ann Diamond will present. Who will be presenting today? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Wingate.
Good afternoon, everyone. James Wingate from USA North 811. You're stuck with me today for the metrics. Although they're fairly uneventful compared to some other previous versions we've had. Not sure if we can get that slide up here. If you have the hard copies, I can proceed, but would it be better to hang on for a sec for the internet group? we go. Perfect. Okay. From a ticket volume perspective, we're having this is going to be the metrics one. That's it. Perfect. Thank you. Okay. From a ticket volume perspective, it's a bit of a quiet year. For USA North, we are up from last year, about 13% through the end of May. But you may recall that 2023 was our slowest year in 5 years. So while we're up a little bit over last year, we are still lower than 2019, 20, 21, 2021, and 22. So we're still having a somewhat slower year. Diggler also is down about 3% compared to last year. So both of us a little bit slow on ticket volume. The other stats are all in check as far as speed of answer, delivery, abandons, and so forth. Nothing, in my opinion, that is especially noteworthy compared to last year. On slide 2, if you have any questions about that, or feel free to stop me if we can go on to the next one, page 3. On the ticket type data, there is one change on this report compared to previous years that the Underground Safety Board staff revised this slightly to put emergency tickets and ACE tickets together to show that they are a subset of new. So these are different types of new as well as the normal new, right? So those numbers are there, but otherwise the numbers are not especially noteworthy. They're following similar trends compared to previous years, and you'll see when we look at the month-to-month and the breakdown by type that it's pretty similar. But you can see that the largest amount of tickets is still new tickets, followed by renewals, as it's been consistently, and those are the largest by far. Everything else is relatively small potatoes as far as amendment, cancel, no response, etc. On slide 4, these are the homeowner tickets. This is new to this calendar year that as far as in this report packet, so just reminding you of that. One thing of note is that there was an error in the last meeting's packet with DigAlert's homeowner stats, but those are now corrected on here. So you'll see both of those going forward. But those are the homeowner volumes, and you can see that's on, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's on slide number 5. But on number 4, there's the ticket volume by month, giving you the breakdown as we mentioned before. On the homeowners one on slide 5, that's the one that has the correction for January and February for DigAlert stats. But they should be correct going forward. The numbers are comparable. You can see that homeowners in general are still less than 5% of the ticket volume in both centers. On slide 6, with the ticket delivery time, we had a little bit slower delivery time in May, but still nothing to be worried about. They still get the members are still getting their tickets very quickly overall. Number 7, this is probably the best slide from my perspective and probably from DigAlert's also, is that the number of tickets being created online is still very high for both centers. DigAlert was 76%, which is excellent, and we're running around 87 for this calendar year so far in the north. So we're doing well that way. That's just from our perspective. There are some why that's important for us, obviously from a labor perspective in terms of how many call center agents we need to employ. We can do more with our staff if we don't have to have every single person on the phone. But also there are some studies nationally, not sure how much I believe them, but some parties are convinced that tickets are safer if the excavator creates them themselves versus by telephone, where a little bit could be lost in translation when you talk to a call center agent. I'm not sure how much I believe that, but that's there for what it's worth. Okay, moving on to slide 8. Calls answered, pretty consistent, based following the ticket volume. On slide 9 is the call data. That's the as far as by month, you can see for speed of answer, abandons, busy signals are still 0, as they've always been for as long as we've been reporting those to you. And the average call duration, how long those calls take. You may note, USA North, we were pushing 10 minutes when we, in fact, it was over 10 minutes when we first started with our new ticket system, but knock on wood, our staff is getting the hang of it better, and we've seen that come down some. It is still notably higher than Dig Alert's time because, well, there's a few different reasons, but anyway, not especially noteworthy or worth diving into in this meeting right now, but things are basically comparable to what you saw in 2023 for those times and so forth. Any questions so far? Okay, on slides 10 and 11, slide 10 is Dig Alert's tickets by type, by month, and same with USA North on slide 11. And if you look at those both together, you'll see they're almost identical as far as the February being the lowest month this year since it has the fewest calendar days and so forth, but also the percent of tickets that are new versus renewal versus all the other types, very consistent month to month. So again, nothing especially noteworthy to point out in these stats at this time. Now we're moving into the electronic positive responses, starting on slide 12. The usual suspects are still garnering the most. Clear no conflict is still the largest in the north as well as in the south by far. You can see the other types, nothing especially out of whack. I will give some kudos if on slide 14 for code 80, which we've talked about in the past about extraordinary circumstances, no locate due to weather or emergencies. You may recall those numbers were significantly higher during COVID, but kudos to the utility operators and their contract locators who are responding well in that area as far as the code 80s are much lower than they've been in some previous years. So any questions about the positive responses? There's the monthly breakdown on those on slides 15 and 16. And again, as you can see, when you look at those month to month, the volumes mirror the ticket volume as far as there's nothing especially noteworthy. There isn't a code that's being used notably more in one month than in a different month. They're still roughly following the same percentages month to month as far as how many are clear no conflict versus negotiated marking schedule, et cetera. So they follow the ticket volume as far as the total volume up and down, just like with the ticket volume, February being the lowest, therefore the sum of all responses is the lowest in February. Questions?
Member Charlotte, are we waiting on questions or do you want them to go?
As we're going, it's fine.
Did you have?
Protocols to wait, okay. Okay. On slide 17 is where we have the response times. This again is something that is, we didn't have this breakdown in previous years, but this is where we're reporting how, if a member responds late to a ticket, how late is it? And you can see that the sum of the lates is still relatively low compared to on time or not responding at all, but there's the breakdown as far as if they're late by less than an hour, 1 to 4, 4 to 8, and so forth. Nothing especially out of the ordinary on that. If you, on the next two slides, 18 and 19 are the breakdown by month for Dig Alert and USA North respectively. Dig Alert on 18 and USA North on 19, and you can see that those numbers are very similar. Looking at Dig Alerts, for example, look at the on-time January, February, March, 237,224, 260. You see they're very similar month to month. going through as far as whether they're late or how late. Those numbers are remaining pretty consistent in both the northern and southern areas. So nothing especially noteworthy in the stats, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Steinman, are you going to present anything, or?
Well, this is just the metrics part. We'll we could do our updates next if you want, and then do all the questions at the end. Would you prefer that?
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah,
okay,
let's do that.
In that case, I'll turn it to Ms. Steiner.
Thank you, Mr. Wingate.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We just have a couple of things at Dig Alert. We have recently added a new user interface for our documentation on our Dig Alert website. And we're also doing a new internal service desk for online and member services via a program called JIRA. We think that it's an easier way. It's definitely helped with member services that I know about. On our outreach updates, in April, I had provided information about monthly emails to our members that did not respond to electronic positive response. As you can see, in March, we were at 92. April, it went up to 105. But by May, we're down to 83 people who did not respond at all to any. We are trying to work with them, again, with member services, trying to get people to actually do this, setting up codes so that they can respond. And then our other outreach is an example of some of the information that we have going to at LA Galaxy Games. Amber, can you click that button? This is a banner that, an LED banner that goes across at the games. And we have it in both English and Spanish. And that's all I have for our updates.
For USA North, this file is a big one, so sorry about that. We got some high speed or a lot of photos in this one, so it may take a second to open. Okay, the first thing is we did a logo change. Underground Service Alert of Northern California and Nevada is still our official name, but as far as our business, doing business as, you'll hear USA North 811 again more often. We're running into a lot of things when we try to register for events and they just can't accept that many characters and other reasons. So we're back to USA North 811. Hopefully that should be, as far as any confusion among stakeholders, by using that name with North included, in a shorter name, we think that'll hopefully resolve any confusion about excavators and utility operators working in Southern California in Dig Alert service territory versus Northern California for USA North. So just that's an FYI. The next one, talking about outreach, we've done a lot. We've had a busy first half of the year. Got some pictures. I won't give you the highlights on all of them, but you can read the captions. The first one is some pictures related to contractors working on the high-speed rail project. The next one is pipelines that are regulated by PHMSA are required to do education to excavators and emergency responders in the areas where their pipelines traverse. And they often outsource that if they're a small pipeline operator, and there is a provider called Paradigm Liaison Services. They're a national provider out of Kansas, I want to say, and they often do a lot of work for pipelines in many states. And they've asked us to help with the presentation because they'll give a more generic one about the call before you dig process in general, but as far as specific to California law, they've asked us to help with their parts in Northern California, which we do. So we've got a few pictures of those. We've also had a few other requests recently from some vendors that sell locating equipment because they historically there's been a lot of training for how to use locating equipment and how to perform that. That's historically been done by equipment manufacturers outside of contract locators, to their credit, who have developed their own internal procedures, and they have an association called NULCA, National Utility Locating Contractors Association, and they've developed training curriculum that's very extensive. But anyway, there are other parties who are getting involved in that, and we've had a few of them ask us to partner with them, and we're kind of testing that water because we don't endorse specifically any vendors because we're just not qualified to say who can train utility operators or locators how to locate lines the best. We run a call center, so I claim no expertise in the actual locating and marking of utilities. But we do chime in with parts about how to read a ticket properly and things like that. So you may see some more of that in some of those pictures. We continue to, we had, this is a new one on slide 6. This is there's an association called the Northern California Backflow Prevention Association. You may recall backflow keeps contaminated water from getting into the potable water system. So they have an association, and that was a full house with that was in Antioch, and they asked us to help speak at that, which we did. So that's good. We're happy to help with other associations of all utility types and certain excavator associations like fencing associations and things like that we're especially interested in. This is an innovation day for Fresno Unified School District. That was kind of an interesting one. They asked us if we could build a display, and I originally thought my guys were going to say no. I don't micromanage in that area, but when they wanted us to build that on about 36 hours notice to have a display where kids could dig in the sand and have underground utilities, but we've got a creative guy in that department, and sure enough, he whipped it up from Home Depot one night, and I was impressed with his dedication when I was not expecting him to spend his evening building something for kids the next day after he'd already done his regular work, but he did. He's a great guy. So kudos to Chris Botting from my team who did that. We've, I think I mentioned last time, but we've started a partnership with the San Jose Earthquake soccer team. It's been great as far as it has really high attendance. Their games are packed. You'll see later on, I'll give you exact numbers of how many people are at each game, but usually they play in San Jose at their own stadium, but once in a while they play at other locations, and this time when they played Los Angeles, since that's a big rivalry, they played at Levi's Stadium, and they had over 40,000 people attend, and we were able to have a tabling event outside there, as you can see, and give away swag and educate people. So that was good. And that includes stuff inside the game, too, as far as banners similar to that go across the LED portion of the field, and so we're able to do that. Looking on slide 9, you may recall for the past several years we've been working with the Oakland Athletics baseball team. Unfortunately, the future is uncertain in that area because, as you know, this year is their last year in Oakland. Next year they're going to be in Sacramento. There's still some stuff to be worked out. We're seeing if we can help with that. It's probable they'll move to Las Vegas after that, but I'm not sure if that's been finalized. So we may still go with that since Las Vegas is still our service territory, but we'll have to think of something else for the Bay Area. We've invested heavily in that. But this year, to kind of thank us for sticking with them, even though they've had some tough times, they gave us some extra signage that we don't normally have. You can see this is right behind home plate. And so we basically got Call 811 in the background on every single pitch on TV, so that was awesome. So that's been a good one. Looking on slide 10, we've continued to partner with a group of other one-call centers led by Arizona 811 to sponsor a NASCAR driver. His name is Josh Williams. This particular car is when he came to Sonoma and raced, and I was hoping that'd be that they rotate which sponsor. You know, there's like 37 sponsors on each car, so it's hard to get your name all out there. But there is a few times when we get the Call 811 is the biggest thing on the car. When he came to Sonoma, unfortunately, it wasn't the biggest that time. So there's the zoom in on his uniform and then on his on the side of the car. But sometimes the Call 811 is a lot more prominent. So it depends on the race. We have a few vehicles. You've heard me say in the past, we've expanded our outreach operations because we're trying to accommodate as many requests for in-person presentations as possible. When excavators or utility operators ask us to come and train their guys before they hit the field in the morning, we try to do that. We do try to be prudent, of course. If someone says, can you come to Bakersfield, I'll have 4 guys there, we might say no to that one. But if they say they're going to have 50, then we would say yes, and we'll go and take care of that. And so we're trying to do that. So we've wrapped a few vehicles. We got 3 RAVs, those 2, and then a green one, and then that Camry. And you've probably seen our truck before. So we have a few vehicles out and about that are kind of the mobile billboards where we're trying to get the word out. And it's always fun. I actually, that silver Camry is the one that I drive, and I forgot that, I drove it for 6 months before it was wrapped, and after I got it wrapped, I guess I wasn't registering that something was different because I'm sitting at the light and I look over and people are looking at me and thinking, do I have something on me? And but people notice, and when you're at the gas station, they ask questions, and so we're making a dent one person at a time, and that's how we get there. On slide 12. We did some stuff with the National Safe Digging Month, which is in April. We had some giveaways, and you can see some numbers from our social media results from that. But we were very pleased with 55,000 impressions on that, and you can see the new followers and profile visits and so forth. So we're continuing to make progress that way. You may recall we have our online training program called 811 Pro. I'm on slide 13 now, excuse me. And those are some statistics for how many courses we've done throughout the calendar year so far, year to date through June 11th. We need to do some work with our Spanish in Nevada, but that's out of your purview, so getting there. And then the last 2 slides, 14 and 15, are the summary of in-person events that we've done throughout the year, and you can see the attendance and the location, and we're really trying to get all over and get people, and we just find that the in-person is more effective than the online, where people tend to multitask when it's online and they're checking their email or doing whatever instead of actively paying attention. And so we're willing to do that, even though sometimes we get a few of those, like you see the Yosemite Springs Park utility at the bottom left of page 14, where we only had 8. So those ones are ones where they probably overpromised us of how many people were going to be there, and we only ended up with 8. Maybe not the best use of travel funds, but sometimes that's what we get. And other times we have larger groups. And then on the last one, slide 15, that's the one where we're some of our larger events where we had people. The World Ag Expo, I told you about that one last time. It had over 100,000 people. And the San Jose Earthquakes games, you can see the attendance there, with the 43,000 one being the one that was at the Levi Stadium that was in the picture earlier. So that's what we've been up to. Primarily this past quarter has been heavy on the outreach, as you can see, which is why most of our updates are related to that. And I think Ms. Diamond and I are happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. So for, to keep decorum, we're going to go ahead and go to the public first to make any comments. So we'll go to in-person. Anyone in person want to make a comment? Yes, Mr. Wingate. Okay. Are there any webinar comments?
There are no webinar comments at this time.
Okay. Okay, board, the moment you've been waiting for. Let's start with board discussion.
Madam Chair, thank you. Thanks both Ann and James for the work that you're doing. Mr. Cleaver earlier came up with an issue or concern about permits and one call tickets and the timeliness of that. Are you guys looking at the possibility of maybe allowing online that you can go in and edit and put the permit number in after the fact?
Ladies first. We do accept when the ticket is created, the permit number can be added. I'll have to double check. We do offer, we'll call an amendment to allow for things. We've envisioned in the past that is primarily a change in field contact or something like that, or, oh, we forgot to give you the gate code, here it is. There is a free-form text where they could put in a permit number, but some fields are editable, such as the field contact, where they can actually type that in, but I don't know off the top of my head if the permit number is one of those. Well, I'll double check that. But that would be ideal, in my opinion, is to allow that to be done straight through the field instead of putting it in the comments. So I'll have to check.
I believe that is a amendment that can be changed both online, as long as you are at least a standard user. If you're a guest user, no. But online, yes, and even because if somebody says, I don't have the permit with me, we tell them, you can give us a call back and we'll add it in.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt the call volumes, increase it for that, but online, if they can just go on and online and just input it, and that way the cities or permitting agencies will have a copy of it and a number, and the ticket will maintain it. So that's all my question.
I believe that is an editable, as James said, an editable field online.
Thank you, Ann.
Member Charlene, on your electronic positive response code usage, the 999s, those are tickets, correct?
Correct.
And that's also, I think, Ann brought it up in her update, and those are members, the ones that you talked about per month, member codes. And that's also the area that staff was helping with by sending out, am I correct? That's where they sent out a bunch, and it caused at least information to call into the one-call centers. You guys are working with them. Did we see a big improvement, or is it really going to come out to just a work in progress to work with these members? There wasn't no big sharp, wow, once they got that letter, whoa.
When we did this the first time, coming from Dig Alert back in December, on December 1st for the stuff in November, and then about 2 weeks later, the Underground Safety Board staff sent out their letters, and their criteria was 50% or less of response, and ours was 100% that hadn't responded. We saw a huge decrease, and if I'm not mistaken, Underground Safety Board took a lot of phone calls and people saying, we want to be able to be compliant, what do we have to do? And a lot of referrals back to our member services to help them set it up, to explain to them, on your ticket there's a link, you can respond directly through that, or if it's a larger company that wanted to break out, water and sewer and, let's say, a city, water, sewer, traffic signals. Our member services is helping them do that. I believe that when it comes from the Underground Safety Board, it gets a lot more play than when it comes from DigAlert.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I'll just add, same thing. I don't have counts of how many, we didn't send letters, but we did do emails to members who were doing zero use of EPR also, and I don't have that handy, but I have to admit that you may recall we had the one NOPV case several months ago with the city of San Francisco that was a massive user, and they've got on board, but some other large municipalities in my service territory were high on the list of not being used, and after that one, now they're no longer high on that list. So that was good, because I fully expected another large municipality within my service territory to be on your, within the crosshairs of this discussion, and instead they got the message from what you did. So others are listening, so that's good.
Thank you from both of you, because I know staff, and I'll point out, Brittany did a lot of work on that, so it sounds good that it actually got results. So thank you, Brittany, for the hard work you put in, and that we're seeing results from that.
Hey, Mr. Wingate, one question. Could you give us status on the mobile app? Yes, I'm out of the...
Sure. We have a mobile app. We deployed it in basically January of 2023 when we went live with the Pelican ticket system. But at the time, it was limited and only had the ability to create new tickets. About, off the top of my head, I want to say 4 months later, in April-ish, was when we got the functionality added to allow for other ticket types to be processed, such as the secondary actions on an existing ticket, the amendment, canceled, no response, remark, renewal, etc. Those got added. And then it was probably late fall of last year. I should know this date off the top of my head, but I don't, sorry. When we got positive response status added to that. So now the mobile app has what we envisioned for when it went live, the functionality that it would have, that you can create a ticket, you can monitor its status in terms of responses from utility operators to your ticket, and then you can also take the secondary ticket actions through there and then see those responses tied to those. So that's what we envision at first. We are hoping to add some additional services. It's part of this discussion is how much work, our call centers are funded by the utility operators. And some of the discussion is how much money do we spend to make the excavator's job easier? And so there's been some conversation about, because excavators say, well, hey, can I get a report of all my tickets, and can I get push notifications to remind me when my ticket's going to expire and have it pop up, and all I have to do is hit yes and it's good to go? And can I do that with a batch of every ticket? And historically, we've been resistant to that because we do believe that there is abuse of tickets that continue to get renewed, even though work is not happening or it's already done. It was created too early, something like that, or the crew hasn't told the admin person at the office that job is done, and the admin person just knows, hey, I just renew it until you tell me to stop. And so we've always wanted them to put fresh eyes on each ticket one at a time, so that they have to say, yep, I'm still working on that ticket, or, oh, wait, we finished that one. That's the intent. But we are entertaining requests from excavators about expanded functionality to make their job easier. I hate to even say this because you're going to want it immediately, but one thing we're also toying with is services for mobile services for utility operators, but also for regulators, such as I'm driving down the road, what tickets are near me? so that you can investigate, or they're on site and they can already do that. The utility or the excavators would probably like that too, but of course we'd have to restrict it to just their tickets. Although we've had a request about, well, I'm a general contractor, I want to see if my subs have tickets, and so there are a lot of requests that we're getting, and so that's why the conversation, and all these things cost money from a software development perspective, and so there is some debate about how much the utility operators should spend to make the excavator's life easier when they're already funding the call centers, funding the Underground Safety Board, and locating and marking their facilities in the field at their own expense. So those are some of the things under consideration.
Yeah, that's a great, I'm an advocate for that one, because I used to drive around and see what ticket, if I see an excavator out working and don't see any paint on the ground, and say, okay, is there any active tickets going on? That's a great tool for the investigators, as well as the operators and you, excavators.
Right.
You're right.
And
you have a time frame on that?
Tomorrow.
I would love it to be this calendar year, but I can't promise. I think it's probable it'll be this calendar year, though.
Thanks, James.
Okay.
Board Member Charlotte, also they're using that for newly installed facilities. After a ticket has been called in, you're able to find out that, hey, new facilities came in, there is still active work, so it's really important that what you're working on is going to be valuable.
Yeah.
I also want to clarify, I give it some credit to Brittany for doing that hard work on the response. I'm sure there's probably staff involved also, and I don't want to miss that the hard work that staff puts in, and they do a lot for me. I don't know about you other board members, but they do a lot of things for me where I just want to point out to them, some of them are here, that I really appreciate you guys, that we throw these curveballs to you where, hey, I'm not coming, don't need flights, and then all of a sudden, or I'm going to drive, and then, you know what, you got 1 week, get me a flight and a hotel and everything. So I just want to make sure that we recognize the staff, that you guys do a tremendous job for us, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, Member Johns, and, appreciate your presentations and then the outreaches you're doing. My question, and I think I mentioned it before, but the more I see your presentations, the better I like the idea of advertising some of these things that come up in our meetings, back through the call centers. So via the tickets, but also your, because you guys, you have a lot of clout in the industry, owners and excavators. It's like you say 811, people respond, and it's, and so I bring it up, just for instance, we talked about, the issues with not calling 911. That, there seems to be a glaring issue that people don't respond to that. They don't know it, and so using you guys to prepare in your advertising to get the message to the excavators, to me seems like a good avenue. So for our education people and stuff, it's still, the word's out that 811, call before you dig, is made a lot of headway, but now using that to get these subtle messages, start thinking about that and how we can make that happen.
Member Voss here, Mr. Wingate and Ms. Diamond, thank you for your reports today and shining a light on the emergency and ACE tickets. Of course, that just continues to let us know on ACE we've still got work to do. But thank you.
Thank you both for your presentation, and I would like to, Ms. Diamond, I can't help but notice that there's a huge difference in the outreach. I'm looking at the booth and tabling and events, the in-person meetings versus online meetings. Maybe can you share if that exists in the South, and if not, what support, can I come and help you? I know I have been with the tabling, but what can we do? Because today we had a bunch of NOPVs before us from the South. How can we take it to your board to start making more visible the impact of education?
Well, as James said, one of the reasons they have not done anything more on certain things on their app is because of money. Advertising in Southern California is expensive. USA North, you have what, 2 people for, yeah. They have a marketing director and then 2 people that pretty much go out and do presentations. We have 1. At this point, we haven't found a lot of need for more than that. A lot of people are still coming out of COVID. And yes, we do need to do better education. However, on the NOPVs that were discussed earlier today, they didn't even know to call 811 first before they dug on every single one of them, with the exception of the EPR. If they don't know to do that, they're not going to know to call 911. It's a breakdown of the entire thing. So to me, the first thing that needs to be done is it needs to start with the excavators and the people who that license those excavators. So the Contractor State License Board, to me, should be more involved in making sure that excavating contractors know about calling 811. And I do not believe that the Contractor State License Board does that. As far as what could we use for help, as I mentioned, Southern California is a very expensive market, so money. Our members have been the biggest cheerleaders in getting the word out more than anybody else.
So I hear the difference between the staffing for it, but could you please take back to the board that we'd like to see, like, you know, even if you have 1 staff member, well, how many outreach courses or the equivalent to what's being done in the north for the next, maybe in the next few months, for us to kind of see what kind of outreach or what kind of education, in person, online. I know that the website has online, you can click on things and go through different laws, but would you mind sharing that with your board, if there is a way to standardize that as well? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Just for clarification, I think you're probably looking for outreach to excavators, but probably outreach to operators, their own members, for various things.
To their own members.
That they're doing.
Yeah. Are there any other board, and so going back to what Ms. Diamond said is, if they're not a member, it's probably hard, right, for them to know. But still, I think, like you said, news carries fast. Just from my own experience of handing out little bags that Ms. Diamond has given me, the one person at a time that Mr. Wingate shared is really important, that it does make a big impact. Okay, so is there any more board discussion? Otherwise, we're going to bring this one to a close. And we're looking at 405 and item number 11, which is recommendations to the governor and legislator regarding the emergency exemption to 811. Do you think, Mr. Marino, do you think we can finish this by 4:30? Or do you think we should pause and wait for tomorrow?
It might be worthwhile to start at least.
Let's start it then. Okay, so the next item on the is an information item on recommendations to the governor legislator regarding the emergency exemption to 811 notification. So, Mr. Marino, where did you go? Did he disappear? He said it might be. All right. Mr. Marino, now that you've magically reappeared, can you please proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So during the April meeting, you discussed the 811 notification exemption in Government Code 4216.2B. The discussion was sparked in part by investigations in which some of you felt that damages could have been prevented by an 811 notification, even though that notification would not have been required due to it being in response to an emergency. So the board discussion during the last meeting landed on the following positions: that the definition of an emergency need not be modified. Emergency excavations should require an 811 notification. That notification should not impede an excavator's ability to address the emergency, consistent with current law, and that operators should continue to have discretion on how quick to respond to an emergency excavation, consistent with current law. And so in the staff report in front of you, you'll see those outlined in issues 1 through 6. In reviewing the statute, staff identified another 6 issues for your discussion. These are consequences of having an emergency notification, not necessarily of having an emergency notification in statute. I think you'll find that if there's an emergency ticket, even without a change of statute, these issues still exist. And so we've also proposed some positions on each of these issues. And after discussing these issues, if you feel you're prepared to make a recommendation to the governor and legislature, we ask that you do so through a vote. And we have proposed text for the recommendation at the end of the staff report. I'll present the 6 new issues highlighted in the staff report and then allow you to move to public comment and then discussion. And again, for the most part, these issues are created by the emergency ticket itself, and the emergency ticket exists today. It's just not required that an excavator get it. So, issue 7, should an excavator making an emergency 811 notification identify the nature of the emergency that they are excavating in response to? Staff proposes that yes, excavators should identify the nature of the emergency in their 811 notification, and this is because operators have staff that are responding to these emergencies, and they should know what they're walking into. Issue 8, should an excavator be required to delineate the excavation area of an emergency excavation? So staff is proposing that since the operator needs to respond, which may include a locate mark, the excavator should delineate. That delineation, however, does not need to happen prior to the excavation. Presumably, if the excavator or if the locator shows up during the excavation, the excavator will be able to work with the locator to identify the area that needs to be marked. Issue 9. Should an operator's response to an emergency, should an operator's response to an excavation within 10 feet of a high priority subsurface installation be modified for an emergency? Staff proposes that an operator inform the excavator immediately of the presence of a high priority line. For a non-emergency ticket in current law, that notification doesn't need to happen at any particular point before the legal excavation start date and time. And so we're proposing that the operator now would need to respond immediately upon knowing of the excavation in the area of the high priority line. Issue 10, if an operator notifies the excavator of a high priority subsurface installation within 10 feet of the excavation, must the excavator wait until the completion of the on-site meeting to begin excavation? Staff is proposing that the excavator and operator still need to discuss the tools and methods of excavation and any assistance the operator will provide in identifying the location of the subsurface installation as required by current law, but that the excavator and operator don't need to be on site to have that discussion. Issue 11, should current law be retained and the expiration date of a ticket apply for an emergency notification in the same way that it applies to a normal ticket, and if the emergency excavation continues beyond the expiration date, should current law apply that the excavator is allowed to renew that ticket. Staff proposes to keep it the same as the new ticket that currently exists, given that adding new conditions make it more difficult to educate and require the call centers to modify their systems. And then the last item, issue 12, if an excavator conducts an emergency excavation or discovers damage to a subsurface installation, conducting an emergency excavation discovers or causes damage, must they notify 811? And staff proposes yes. That is the existing law, no need to change it. And again, we have recommendation ladder language at the end of the staff report, and happy to answer any questions after public comment.
All right, thank you, Ms. Marino. All right, so we'll move on to public comment. Does anyone any member of the public wish to speak on item number 11?
Madam Chair. Steve Cleaver with PG&E's Damage Prevention Department. Grateful that the board is taking up this issue. I think the issue of emergency tickets and being clear on what an emergency ticket is, that it is not just defined by the one call centers, which I'm grateful that they have done that. But giving some clarity around expectations for excavators, I think is very important. I'm grateful that the board is doing that. In my review of the materials prior to today, there were a couple of things that that jumped out at me that I thought might still need to be considered. When an emergency ticket is created, oftentimes that work is done relatively quickly, and it's completed before the utility operator gets to the site to complete the work. It was addressed in the pre-read material, but the concern that I have is that many times the utility operator is going to be going out to the site after everything is already completed and still having to respond, whether this is after hours, early morning, or even middle of the day. And in doing that, it creates a need for additional communication between the two, and I do think that there's an opportunity to clear up the expectation between the excavator and the operator, perhaps in creating a requirement for the excavator to complete their response to that emergency ticket. For example, their work is completed, creating some sort of a requirement or instruction to contact the one call center to advise them that the work there is complete. That way, if the utility operator still has not responded to that ticket, that they're not mobilizing somebody to get them out there to complete work once the excavation work has already been done. It's addressed a little bit later in the pre-read material as well, that an operator should still respond out to the site to complete the work, to confirm that all work has been done. But I believe that there's a better way to do that through laying out some expectations of communication between the excavator and the operator, specifically for emergency tickets. As we all know, not every operator has the same structure that my group, my company has the benefit of having. And oftentimes they don't get these notifications until the next morning, and they're scrambling somebody 7 o'clock in the morning to get out to a site when work has already been completed at the previous evening, and they're not able to get a hold of the site contact because they're on a rest period or they're back at home. Just going over my notes here. I'm encouraged by the evaluation of high priority subsurface installations and laying out expectations for communication. I am also concerned of the possibility of having just a phone conversation before work begins and an idea that would be safe operations. I also believe that after having a phone conversation, that an operator, if we've identified that the work is going to be in proximity to a high priority subsurface installation, depending on the type, that there needs to be some sort of, hey, let's have a discussion, let's stop this work, and create an opportunity for some sort of stop work responsibility or stop work authority in the event that that high priority subsurface installation is going to be within the scope of the work. Now, if a ticket's created and that work is happening on the opposite side of the street of the subsurface installation, and we're able to clearly define that, I agree that that work should be able to resume. But in the event that that work is happening in proximity to it or directly over the top of it, to be able to put some guidelines or some restrictions, some expectations that mechanized equipment can't be used or something. And this isn't to protect just the asset itself. This is to protect the excavators or those that are engaged in the work, and to put some sort of requirements in the recommendation related to that conversation. I'm sure that there's more thought around the idea that somebody wouldn't have to go out to the site and be able to clear it, or at least allow them to begin prior to somebody responding out to the site. But I believe with high priority subsurface installations, there's significant risk. And we need to be a little bit more careful and potentially thoughtful around how we lay that out as a recommendation. And actually, I think that wraps up my comments and my notes. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, James Wingate, USA North 811. I had two minor comments in relation to this issue of emergencies as I reviewed the materials. The first one is that I would like, if you're going to make regulations, I would recommend that we have something that says that an emergency ticket cannot be renewed. I guess you're contemplating legislation more than regulation for this particular one. But right now, and I can't remember if DigAlert does this too. I think yes, but at USA North, we don't allow an emergency ticket to be renewed because we're interpreting the definition of an emergency as it says sudden, unexpected event, blah, blah, blah. We don't envision that that's going to take longer than 28 calendar days to finish. And so occasionally, but not often, if someone tries to renew a ticket, the system won't allow it. And I haven't been dragged through the coals on this, but, you know, I technically don't have authority to deny that. So it would be nice if we could get some clarification that we don't envision an emergency taking that long to complete, and that a new regular ticket should be created if the work is going to take longer, such as they think it's a minor leak and they get started and then they realize they're going to have to do some big project. At that point, a regular ticket is created, and it's not the emergency is confined to something smallish to repair, filling that definition of an emergency. And the second thing is, I just want to comment that the concept of tracking why it's an emergency, I think, is excellent, because we have, at least at my center, and I'm pretty sure that's the case for DigAlert too, but we get complaints from our member utility operators frequently about emergency tickets being abused. The classic example is the homeowner who has a slow drip in the water line that's been happening for months or maybe even longer, and the plumber says, well, I'll create an emergency ticket and fix it for you this afternoon, because they want the business. But then the utility operators scramble out there, and he doesn't dig that afternoon, and maybe not even the following morning. It might be later on, he has to get parts or whatever, and utility operators complain about that. So I think ways to categorize how many, if we had some data, I'm envisioning, I like drop-down boxes, so I would love to have a list of why does your ticket count as an emergency, and they have to choose from the breakdown in the definition of an emergency and what that is, and then maybe we could report on that. That might be interesting data. So those are my comments about this topic. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Any webinar comments?
There are no webinar comments at this time.
Okay, I think this is a natural break. We have about 8 minutes until 4:30. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to close out public comments, both in person and the webinar. And tomorrow morning, we'll go ahead and pick up in the board discussion of this item. So I'm going to go ahead and call our recess on action item 11 and suspend till tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. And I'll see you all in the morning. Thank you.